he gave a few weeks off, as we suggest, and then he started taking it as is written in the book, and he said, and it worked again. So that's the wonderful. I wrote him back and I said, you've made two discoveries, one that you didn't want and one that you wanted. You've proved what we've talked about is tolerance is real. And you also are the discoverer that microdosing helps Tourette's. So that's one. Same story. I could give the whole same story, only I would be using the word cluster headaches, which have no real, they have all kinds of things that make it bearable. Cluster headaches are the worst pain human beings can experience, literally. They are also called suicide headaches because of the high percentage of people with clusters who'd rather die than have another. Somebody took LSD a week or two later, expected his seasonal cluster headaches, and they didn't come. And he finally thought, maybe it's LSD. So he waited for the next part of the calendar when he knew, having had 15 years of clusters, when his cluster would come, took LSD a week before, and it didn't come. Out of that arose a group called Cluster Busters, who have literally helped thousands of people figure out the right doses and the right time and the right way to work for cluster headaches. Let me just give you one more that's even more common, which is depression. Antidepressants are not the world's greatest medication, as you all know. They do literally make it more comfortable to be sad. So there's less sad with antidepressants. There's also less glad. And a number of you know what that means. It's called feeling like a zombie, which is, I don't feel bad, I don't feel sad, I don't feel anything. Microdoses work differently. First week or two, people say, yes, I feel less sad, just like antidepressants. The difference is you feel more glad. You feel happy, you feel alive, you feel excited. You feel, and here's the statement I hear over and over and over again, I'm back, I'm back. What's back? What's back is that you say, I'm like the way I was before. So that's a range of what microdosing is about. Those are not, they're easier to explain. They're not perhaps the most exciting and interesting, but what you're seeing is they all have very different physiological bases, genetic bases, but they're all that the system isn't working quite right. And so microdoses seem to be like a tune-up, and out of that, a lot of other changes occur. How's that? Does that cover your question somewhat?
Absolutely. There's millions of applications of microdosing ultimately. And it's just so exciting to hear about some of the breakthroughs. Something that I've seen recently is phantom limb pain. I have a client that lost his leg in the war, tried different types of treatments, has phantom limb pain, and now he has 100% relief from phantom limb pain from microdosing.
That's so exciting because phantom limb pain really makes no sense at all. Okay, you've lost an arm, and not only do you still experience the arm, but it can itch, it can cramp, it can basically be sore on a particular place, all of which is unlikely since you don't have any physical limb. There's a couple of things that might help, but we're now seeing a few reports, not quite as beautiful and clear as Danielle's, but then again, this man was being helped and facilitated, where people report for some reason the phantom pain disappears. So these are the breakthrough areas. Most people microdose fundamentally either to feel better or to function better. It is not, and the nice thing is you don't have to have a physical defect or a mental condition in order to be better. And as you know, some mornings you wake up and you say, wow, I just feel better. That's the place that microdosing goes to. And more people who are using it who have no, quote, diagnostic needs. They couldn't go to a physician and say, I want to microdose, even if it were more available. So we're looking at a very fascinating, we're looking at something similar to vitamins. Vitamins help the whole system. Microdosing helps the whole system. And that's what we're looking at, and that's what we're sharing, and that's what more and more people want, the support and the help and the tuning that you get when you're working with someone who can work with your body and your background and your situation. And that's a lot of what we're here for, to make it clear that this is the next phase.
Exactly. We're shifting away from just taking a microdose, not really knowing what it does, and then saying you don't really know how it works, to actually putting structure, context, framework, and the multidimensionality of the experience. And so I'd love to, hear from you. And also, one of the things that I love that you said previously is microdosing is helping well people get better. It's not just about having, a physical or mental ailment, or, there's so many different applications. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs that are creating companies, and, there's a lot of innovation and creativity that can happen when you microdose. I like to say that microdosing is on the board chair of my company. It's my innovation partner. It's our partner in this lifetime to help us get where we want to go with greater ease and greater acceleration. It's sort of like riding an electric bike.
Well, I'm remembering I was giving a talk in San Francisco, and young man stood up and said, because people were talking about depression and things, and he said, "I only use microdose for a coding problem." And what he was saying is that he was aware of its ability to help him focus not only better, but really quite important, longer. And this again and again and again is what people are using it for when it's kind of work related, is it allows you to do your work better. You don't get visionary experiences, giant anacondas don't come and eat you, all that fascinating stuff that high doses are. It simply allows whoever you are to get your best. And it's now become fairly well known in certain athletic areas. Mixed martial arts, and recently we're seeing that ultra marathoners are the people who I am not one of, who say, well, running a marathon is like warm up. I want to run 50 miles or 100 miles. And what they find is, and this is now just generally understood throughout the sport, microdosing makes it easier. Why? Because microdosing increases your physical capacity. It allows you literally to metabolize in a slower, more even way. It also improves coordination so you don't stumble. And it also allows a certain mental clarity, other than the thought of, why am I a grown-up person running all these miles? It doesn't help you with that thought at all. But it does help you say, I'm just going to be doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to appreciate it, and I'm going to enjoy it. There's a film, I think it's finished by now. Long distance runner said, I'm going to run 500 miles in 10 days. And I'm going to be using microdosing as definitely part of what I'm doing. And I have a film crew who's going to be following me. So we now have a very impossible to replicate in the lab look at one of the very curious uses of microdosing, which is how it improves purely physical functioning. Although if you're a long distance runner, you know there's an enormous amount of mental work that goes into that as well. So it's not only for the healthy, it turns out it's for the super healthy.
Exactly. I love that so much. In your book, you spend a little time talking about coaches and facilitators. Why is that?
Well, the book is now over a year old, which means published, which means add another 6 or 8 months when you had in the manuscript, and under another 6 or 8 months when you had those parts of it. And at that point, there weren't enough coaches in enough countries doing enough different things that we could comment on it sensibly. So we, in the book, basically say, coaching is good for you if you think it would help, and we're not making recommendations. We are now adding to the book because we have a Spanish translation coming out next year. We have a Portuguese translation, and they're very interested in having us add to the book. We'll have a Polish translation, probably English and French, German and French. So we get to add. And one of the things we're adding is that coaching is now, well, let's be very straightforward. According to the RAND Corporation, and they're about as non-psychedelic as you can imagine, they think 10 million people microdosed last year in the United States alone. Now, if you want to know how many coaches there are in the United States, it's not enough. It's not enough for 1 million. It's way, 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 way not enough for 10 million. So in the rules of business, or what we call need finding, there's a need in the microdose world for more support. There's a need because people without, many of you, I'm guessing, have a lot of psychedelic experience because you're looking at what's next for you. People without psychedelic experience and basically with very little information, maybe taking a microdose because somebody friend said, that's a good idea, I want you to take some. How much? Well, you know, a little. How often? When it feels right. That's, you wouldn't go to a physician that talks to you that way. So we're seeing this shift, and one of the reasons I'm here is I'm now seeing, and I get a lot of reports from Danielle and from some other coaches, particularly coaches in Europe, what they're working with and how it's working and why that they're finding that the need is growing a lot faster than the number of people available, which is I guess what we would call an employment opportunity. Now, remember, federal government is still somewhere in the 1970s with President Nixon saying, I don't like hippies, I don't like people that are against the war, I don't like Jews. Why don't I make psychedelics illegal? Because then I can torture and bust and make difficulties for all those people. Medical reasons at the time, zero. Number of medical people who read the legislation, let alone approved it, zero. So we have some very strange legislation that is interrupting our ways to heal ourselves. So not surprisingly, whenever government makes illegal something that people want, people figure out a way. And here we are.
Exactly. We're really at the infancy phase of the development of the field, which is so exciting. And I love that you're continuing to update the different iterations, and congratulations on expanding the book in all over the world and these new locations and different languages. That's incredible. You're such an inspiration to me. And I'd love to hear from you what you've seen in terms of what are the differences that you've seen between personal experience reports where people are microdosing on their own versus when they're microdosing with support, facilitation, and guidance.
Well, there's a third category, which is how about people who are in research studies where they get neither information nor support? Surprise, that doesn't work as well. Okay, so the difference between coaching and non-coaching is the difference between learning to play the piano or learning to play the piano with lessons. You can learn to play the piano, and so there are some brilliant musicians that learn by listening, and they had fantastically good ears. But most people found that lessons made it easier, faster, smarter, and they became more skilled more quickly in how their own fingers could translate. The purpose of coaching is simply to make sure that you get what you need when you need it. I mean, for instance, the Tourette story is a good one, which is he just did it himself and it worked fantastic. He made this incredible breakthrough that we're all excited about. And then because he didn't have any support or knowledge about protocols and why you take breaks and how you change dosing levels, he lost it. He kind of screwed himself into a corner and there was no way out. Painted himself into a corner. We'll use a nicer word. Okay. But he then got some information and basically was still serving because he didn't know that facilitators existed, and worked his way out of it the best way he could. So the way I'm looking at it, there's a lot of people of the 10 million that we're never going to reach in our lifetimes, because it's growing faster than we can train people. And as psychedelics become legal, it will become a established profession. It'll have professional groups. It'll be taught in the mental, or hopefully in the physical and mental health sections of therapies and medical schools. It is being taught in more and more medical schools. But right now we're in a place where the people with lived experience and with years of helping people are the experts. And those experts get better each year because they have more and more interesting clients that they've worked with. I mean, Danielle's working with this person with phantom pain. I have a friend with phantom pain, and he's been in phantom pain, he said, pretty much almost every day for over 40 years. Well, I want him to get, I'm not going to advise him, but I want him to get the kind of moment by moment advice that he's going to need to overcome both his serious pain and his just lack of knowledge and lack of experience in these areas. So, you know, since I did the book, I kind of overdid my life a little bit, and I had some dental work, and I was talking to my dentist, who I just think is just a marvelous, brilliant, creative human being. And I said to her, do you think this is because of stress? And that was a real question. She looked at me and she said, of course. And I thought, that's a professional, okay? She's seen thousands of teeth. I've only seen 30 or 40 here. So that's the purpose. The purpose of having a facilitator is so you get basically what you want: better, easier, safer, etc. Now, again, of those 10 million, there are people who simply want a facilitator, and some of you may want a facilitator, and you're going to get some help on this program doing that. The rest of you already have worked with microdosing or intend to, looking at a real career shift, and you want to know, how do you become a facilitator? You can't do what Danielle did. You can't just say, I'll put in 10 years and then I'll do it. We don't need that anymore. That's why we have instructors. They know more than we do. You know, when you go, something's wrong with your car and you pull it into your garage, and he says, and it goes clink, clunk, and you're out. And you think, oh my God, that was fantastic. Why couldn't I do that myself? And the answer was, because you don't know. Not because you're a bad person or that your car is evil. Simply, the reason for using people with expertise is they know more than you do. And if you want to become one of them, you can do it by trial and error, as many of them have, or you can skip a lot of the trial and error and profit by all their mistakes and the things they now know that they work with people. One of the things I like about facilitators like Danielle is they're not just facilitators. They're working with people on a daily and weekly basis, so they keep checking themselves against what they're teaching. Nothing wrong with just teachers. I've been one, but it's not the same as someone who actually is working in the field, who knows what they're doing. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. I love the analogies that you gave. It's so helpful to give context and a framework to it. And I think, something that we're in such an interesting time. As you mentioned, over 10 million people just in the US alone have reported microdosing in 2025. In 2023, that number was 3 or 4 million. So we're really a part of this huge resurgence right now that's happening. And I didn't take the survey. You didn't take the survey. We both believe that there's a lot more people than those 10 million people. And there's also such limited research that's currently happening with microdosing, both scientific and clinical research. A big part of it is because the federal government prevents participants from actually taking the microdose home in the research studies. So I'd love to just get, a high level perspective from you on how you're viewing the current clinical and scientific research on microdosing. What are some of the breakthroughs? What are some of the pitfalls that we're seeing? And how can we, as a collective, be able to decipher the research that comes out?
Well, some of you know the myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus is someone in Greek mythology who is in hell, and his particular torment is he pushes a boulder up a hill, and just when he can get it to the top, it rolls back down. Okay? Research looks a lot like that. But which is they try really hard, but they're limited by their own situation, by their own training. So nobody's fault. But if you actually understand what's in back of research, why does someone want to research? I assure you, nobody is researching Tourette's and microdosing this year. Next year, highly likely. Multiple sclerosis. Sorry, Parkinson's. Parkinson's, no research until this year. Now there's a study in Europe, 16 patients with Parkinson's and microdosing. Why is that research happening? Because we have some cases, we have some real people, we have some real evidence that it works with somebody. And in the research world, if you think about it, if there's one case, say this Tourette's person, that means it's possible, okay? If you have two cases, then it's species-wide. If you're a researcher and you're justifying, remember, research has one very secret problem, which is someone else has to pay for it. People who pay for it say, well, what's your evidence that it's worth giving you research money for this thing? And until there is real experience recorded and out there and available, nobody gets funded. And unfortunately, if most of the funding, and I was listening to a wonderful professor in Canada who said her fear is that the inexpensive treatments will be passed over because they're not profitable. And the research on the whole is funded by profit-making companies. So I would, if you have a feeling of what would you like to be if you didn't have to push the rock up, what would be an easier torment for eternity? Reading research papers would be as tormenting as you could possibly get, because they all have good intentions. But if they have no idea what they're talking about, but they have a system and they squeeze their data into that system, the research sometimes is bizarre. Again, another Greek. Greeks had a lot of problems. There was a guy called Procrustes, and he had an inn, and it was on the way to a major religious shrine. And so people would want to stay overnight as they were traveling. But he only had one bed, and it was stone, and it had a headboard and a footboard. And the problem was, what if you didn't fit his bed? And he said, no problem. I have a rack, and I can stretch you, and I have a blade, and I can shorten you. Now, he didn't have a lot of clients, but the Procrustean method of research is alive and well. So when you're reading research, read the assumptions, which is, what are they imagining to be true? Assumptions are stuff you haven't proved yet. There's also what's called hypotheses, which is, what's your guess that you might find? Now, mostly researchers are smart enough to set it up so they'll find what they're looking for. So they go then to the grantor and say, hey, really cool. I found what I was curious about and what I already knew to probably be true because I look at people's experiences. So you should know, I do have a PhD from a genuine grown-up institution, Stanford. It was about psychedelic research. And one member of my committee, took me like a year to get a committee. So I said to guy that I'm asking, he's the head of the department, which I figure nobody's going to be able to get mad at him if he helps me. Also had been president of the American Psychological Association, so he was like definition of straight. And I said, dear Dr. I'd like to do a dissertation on the effectiveness of psychedelic therapy because I've been working in that area for several years and I have a lot of data. And he smoked his pipe, lets you know what the era was, had the jacket on with the little protectors on the elbows because he'd worn them out sitting on the desk. And he said, Dr. Fadiman, you realize if you do this dissertation, you will never have a career in traditional psychology. And I looked at him and he looked at me and we had a totally different take. He was warning me not to do it. I was thrilled at what he was promising. And he was right. So research, by definition, because you're getting funded by people who are not like wild, far out, edgy people, you're getting kind of safe research. A huge amount of research is called confirming what somebody else did, so you don't really have to take any risks at all. And some of it is genuinely, sometimes it's wonderful. There's a recent study out of New Zealand where someone said, why don't we try and give people microdoses of LSD for depression, kind of the way we see them doing it anyway, so that you're given a dose and you're told if you feel that's not working for you, you can up your dose. And if you feel that's not working for you, you can up your dose. And over a period of a few weeks, you have that option of finding the right dose for you. And instead of a lot of numbers and a lot of graphs, which we all know we skip over when we read, it's filled with the explanations of what people experienced during this very tight, very well-designed research program. And oh boy, surprised to none of us, including I'm sure the researchers, a very large percentage of people who had, what do we call it? Anyway, you've had like 10 or 15 different treatments for depression. So you are what's called treatment resistant. It's a terrible word because it's like blaming you. You've tried what they offered and it all failed. Like 60% of them had massive improvements. So why was that true here's a research project. I'm just trashing researchers, this great research project. Notice the researchers tried to imitate what they saw was already so, because that was likely going to work better than what the model from psychopharmacology is you give everybody the same dose, no matter what their level of condition is. You can't change the dose and you can't change the time because it doesn't screw up their lives, it improves their lives, but it screws up their statistics. And you can't get published without the statistics. So I am incredibly optimistic that good research will eventually continue to emerge, but it is in a sea of conventional research which hasn't been, which we haven't learned much from, because it repeats what we already know from the field. What I have, when I said I have data from 50 countries, one of the other groups, Microdose.me, has data from 81 countries. It's around. So discovery, which is what research likes to do, is coming in behind, as is normal. Rant, okay?
Well, it's fascinating because, I think another dimension of what you mentioned with that study is that the participant was empowered, that they had an empowered role in their process and in their healing process, and they could determine if the dose needed to be adjusted, and it was led by their intuition. And that's so much of what we're seeing as microdosing facilitators, that it's not just about the medicine itself. It's a partnership between the individual and the medicine, and the individual is guiding their process and responding and feeling empowered that they get to play a role in that process. So as we come to a close with just this portion of the section, I'd love to hear, you're on the faculty of the Microdosing Facilitator Training, and we're going to go into, the training and how people can get involved. And what would you say to someone that's considering becoming a facilitator or coach in this rapidly growing field?
Fundamentally, do you like people? Because you're going to be being human with people. I mean, if you're a psychiatrist, and they don't like it either, but you have like 15 minutes and they give you a drug. For that, they did 10 years of medical work. That's terrible. Being a facilitator means that you're on a one-to-one people, and you need to like that. You also need to be able to not only give support, you have to be not only capable, but deeply interested in listening, because they're going to tell you exactly what you need to tell them. That's the fun part. I've been a consultant in a lot of different fields, and I've trained people in consulting. And the secret is you just wait until the person tells you exactly what they said they don't know. And people do understand themselves, even if it's a part of them that they're not in touch with. So it's a joyful kind of work. And you're not going to hurt anybody. The wonderful thing about microdosing is if it isn't being effective at a dose or a protocol, that's all you can say. It didn't work. Not that people get worse. You know, I'm forever asked, well, what are the negative side effects of microdosing? And I think, God, what am I going to say? There's so little. You know, you have to scratch around to fit their preconception, because they're used to pharmaceuticals. When you get that little teeny multi-ball folded piece of paper that you can't read deliberately, 8-point, and it has side effects, and there's and you think, oh my God, I don't want to take this medication. That's why the type's so small. Microdosing doesn't do much, but what it does is change your life. If that interests you, you might want to facilitate. And what you might want simply is you want to become a client of one of the facilitators. So that's why most of you are here, because you have either one or both of those interests, and both of those are what this program is about.
Beautiful. How has microdosing changed your life?
Well, let's see. This was 12 years of listening to people. It has given me the chance. I mean, you know, a lot of us feel a lot better when we make someone else happy. And when you're a writer, you get to help people get happy who you'll never meet and will never meet you. And there's a kind of being human. I have had many, many years of working with high-dose psychedelics. They have an enormous different world. They're not helpful too much in the day-to-day world. But when I got into microdosing, all of a sudden, I didn't have to apologize for anything. I didn't have to say, don't worry, here's this, get help, you can't do it on your own, and so forth. Most microdosing, as you can tell, 10 million people, had to be on their own or with a friend. We're now making it easier to know how to help people. And the people you help are going to be helping other people. So you get to be part. I love it. I mean, I love that. I this wonderful report recently of someone who was in incredibly deep, intense grief, totally justified, for years. And then someone said, have you tried microdosing? And within a couple of weeks, he said, it was like I was reborn again. I enjoyed myself. I didn't think that killing myself was a good idea. I threw those ideas away. I'm getting a new guitar. I haven't played in years. I played for years and loved. I'm back in appreciating the life I have, instead of wallowing in my totally justified, totally appropriate, even excessively long grief. Is there better work than that?
That's what this is all about. I love that microdosing has brought you to your mission and your purpose and your passion on this planet, and that because of you, you've really paved a pathway for all of us and your dedication to the field. And I just feel so grateful for you and for the ability to work with you and collaborate with you. I process all of my caseloads with Dr. Fadiman and talk to you almost every single day, and feel really grateful to be on this sacred path together. Thank you so much for your powerful work and wisdom.
Well, it was either that or get a real job. And my professor had said I wouldn't get those real jobs. By the way, I actually taught in 4 different institutions, but not in a promotional, not in the kind of work your way through the system. And I'm so grateful that what I've learned with microdoses and macrodoses matter. It's been unfortunate that it's taken this long to turn around the stopping of conventional research, but it hasn't stopped researchers, it hasn't stopped physicians. And now, as we see with microdosing being so safe, the growth of microdosing is simply frighteningly fast, and we're doing what we can to catch up.
Absolutely. Thanks for paving the path for us. Any final words for our community today?
Yeah, if you have some amazing cure of your own or of a friend, write me. I really, you may end up never getting any credit for anything you send me, but you may be able to help a whole lot of other people by sharing your unusual success.
Thank you so much. Well, we're going to be giving away 3 signed copies of Microdosing for Health, Healing, and Enhanced Performance later at the end of the call. So we definitely invite everyone to stay on the call on the Zoom today. And a way to enter into getting a signed copy is to book a 20-minute call with me. I'm doing free 20-minute calls with anyone that's interested in connecting about microdosing or the programs that we offer. And Jim, we're going to also have a Q&A with Jim at the end of our session today. So we invite everyone to stay on for the rest of the presentation. Thank you so much for being here with us.
I'll see you in a little while.
See you in a little bit. So I'm going to go into a presentation for our beautiful community. I'm just going to pull it up here. I love seeing all the comments in the chat and everyone sharing your experiences and your questions, and we'll be sure to answer all your questions at the end of today. Are we able to see the presentation? Thumbs up if we are.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to talk about using microdosing as a tool for transformation, as well as how you can become a microdosing facilitator. My name is Danielle Nova. I've been working in the psychedelic field for almost a decade as the executive director of San Francisco Psychedelic Society, which is the first and largest psychedelic society in the United States. I also founded an organization called Lumeria, and I'll put the link in the chat to Lumeria, and we provide microdosing facilitator training as well as concierge microdosing guidance. I've worked with thousands of people all around the world as a microdosing facilitator, and I've also professionally trained over 100 therapists and clinicians and practitioners to be certified microdosing guides. I also worked on the founding team of Decriminalize Nature Oakland, and we passed the first resolution in the United States to deprioritize all psychedelic plants and fungi. And I'm on the advisory board of Melissa Etheridge's foundation and have a specialty in training about psychedelics for interrupting addiction. This is me at City Council back in 2019, where we passed the first initiative to decriminalize all psychedelic plants and fungi. And I was promising City Council that I would focus on education. I really believe that education is the most important foundation for any microdosing experience, where we can talk about safety and structure and how to really use these tools for growth. And I also have a personal story. I was addicted to drugs for 15 years and was deeply addicted to both prescription medications prescribed by a doctor that I was put on as a child, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, sleeping medications, ADHD meds, tried over 100 medications. I got severely addicted to opioids, was in and out of 8 rehabs. Nothing ever worked until I discovered psychedelics back when no one was talking about psychedelics for addiction, and I was able to interrupt my addiction with the intentional application of psychedelics and microdosing. And microdosing was a game changer, and it really helped me give me my life back, and was one of the only things that helped me recover from getting off of the horrible withdrawals. I almost died from withdrawal from these drugs. And what I realized is that microdosing is actually a skill. It's not a magic pill. We're really in a moment of a massive global shift. As we talked about, over 10 million people have reported trying microdosing in 2025. Many people are self-experimenting without guidance or knowledge of how to receive the maximum benefit out of microdosing. And my mission is to empower a new paradigm of transformation through intentional microdosing. Over the past decade, I've guided thousands of people through this practice. And what I'm going to be teaching us about today is what I've learned from that process and how what I've learned can help you on your microdosing journey. And then I'm also going to talk about our training program, which is in partnership with Double Blind Magazine, and how you can get involved in that. What I've seen are miracles, transformations, mistakes, what actually works, some of the common pitfalls, and the impact of having a guide. And that's my logo, which is actually a fractal of microdoses with an open heart at the center. So I believe, our hearts guide this work. And microdosing teaches us how to reconnect with our heart and our unconditional love. So what have I learned guiding thousands of people around the world through intentional microdosing? Right now I have a program where I provide concierge guidance to people. I guide them through their microdosing protocols. In the past 5 months, I've worked with over 60 people. I currently have close to 40 people in my private practice. And the common things that I've noticed are microdosing actually doesn't create change. It reveals patterns for you to work on and gives you the confidence for you to change yourself. Oftentimes in the Western world, we view substances that we put in our bodies that they're supposed to make the change for us. But with microdosing isn't going to change us. It will help you change yourself. It's going to amplify all these things, both consciously and unconsciously. And your guide can help you track your growth and changes. So that's why we give people tracking sheets. I get notified every time someone fills out their tracker, and we can see the small changes that happen over time. The protocol matters, but so does the context. So oftentimes people are talking about, well, what protocol are you using with microdosing, as if the protocol is the only thing that matters. It matters, but also so does intention. Customizing your protocol, customizing your dose, the environment, the relationship that you have with yourself, doing the integration and inner work. Your nervous system has a direct impact on the microdose experience, as well as listening to the microdose, listening to yourself, and actually transforming yourself with the support of the microdose. Without integration, results can plateau quickly, because if nothing is changing long term, it's because the individual is not wanting to put any work to change. There was this article that came out recently that I reported around thousands of people microdosing, and basically the article said, well, no one had long-term changes from the microdose. And my question is, well, what were they doing to change? So it's not just about focusing on what the drug can do for me. It's about, how can this medicine teach me more about myself? It's a partnership. The nervous system determines the outcome. If someone is dysregulated, microdosing can actually amplify and increase anxiety. It can amplify overwhelm. Nervous system is just as important as the medicine itself. And we really teach people how to listen to the microdose, because it's not just positive benefits that we're seeing all the time. Microdosing is a non-specific amplifier. It's going to amplify all different aspects of your life. It's like putting a magnifying glass on different patterns and different experiences and different belief systems, so that you can meet yourself more clearly. The most impactful breakthroughs happen between doses. It's not just about the dose day, it's a look back medicine. So that's what we teach people about: reflecting on their microdosing experience, changing their behavior, interrupting patterns, as well as becoming the best versions of themselves. Most people are microdosing on their own, and that's the gap. I think that's the biggest one. Out of the 10 million people that have reported having microdosing in 2025, I have an estimated that 50% of those people either stop microdosing or say it doesn't work, not because the protocol isn't effective, but because they don't actually know how to receive the maximum benefit out of the microdose and really work with it, and understand how to receive the maximum transformation out of the experience. Microdosing will become the gold standard in supporting medication tapering. That's really one of my sweet spots of what I do. And I think this is a big role of microdosing facilitators is helping people who decide that they want to titrate off of their medications. Right now, there's very little support and guidance and tools that actually help people titrate off of medications. For me, I had debilitating withdrawals for over 18 months. Microdosing was the only thing, one of the only things that really helped me with these withdrawals from getting off of medications that were prescribed by a doctor. And I'm just so grateful for the microdose and how it helped that process. And Jim and I always talk about how it's really going to become a gold standard for medication tapering. A recent client that I worked with was on SSRIs for 25 years. He said every time he tried to get off of the SSRI, he would get suicidal and would have to go back on it. And yesterday, he actually just came off of the SSRI, and he was using microdosing to help him titrate off of it. He didn't have any withdrawal symptoms the whole time, and he's free from that dependency to that medication. He said he feels like he has his life back. He feels more life. He feels more connected to his emotions. He feels like he has himself back, which is just amazing. I'm so proud of him. Microdosing is an entry point to deeper work. The medicine, what I teach people is the medicine will respond to you and you will respond to the medicine. It's a relationship and it's a mirror. The microdose is a tool for transformation, growth, and neuroplasticity. The medicine is so much more than a supplement or an antidepressant. Tracking your microdosing process is essential for growth. It can help you physically, emotionally, spiritually, consciously, with your work, with your relationships, with your relationship to yourself. There's so many different dimensions. It's multidimensional in the ways that microdosing can help an individual. One of the common myths is, oh, you're not supposed to feel a microdose. And I actually teach people that you're supposed to feel the microdose. It's a twilight dose is what I'm calling it now. You know that moment where the sun is just coming up, that little sliver of the sun? That's the twilight. Or when the sun is going down, that last sliver, when the sun goes down, that's the twilight. That's what we're calling a microdose. It's the sort of the bridge between the mystical and the mundane, between the spiritual world and the physical world. It's that little sliver. And that's, you're supposed to feel just a sliver of the microdose, not to where it's impacting your normal functioning or you can't drive a car, but you want to feel like the best version of yourself. If you feel just a little bit of anxiety or feel nothing at all, typically means that the dose is too low. If you feel overwhelmed or like you can't function, then the dose is too high. And the sweet spot is really important. And that's, where a microdosing guide can really come into place. We can teach people to find their sweet spot, and there can be different sweet spots depending on the activities that you're doing. So you might have a microdosing you might have a microdose dose for your work, but that dose could change depending on the activities that you're doing or the people that you're with. Also, the more you microdose and do the integration work, the more sensitive you can actually become to the medicine. So your dose and your sweet spot might change. Everyone has a different sweet spot. There's no standardization to dosing. You'd be surprised at how different people respond to a microdose. So that's what we teach about in our training program is these different dose ranges and how to help each individual find their unique microdose. This work is calling new leaders right now, and everything I just shared is exactly why we train people. And I'm learning so much, working with so many different people. It's really exciting to be at the forefront of this practice. And another thing that I found is, when I work with people, I offer all different types of protocols that they can follow. But what I've found the most effective protocols, the new protocol that I have developed, it's called the NOVA protocol, where people are dosing 2 days on, 1 day off. What people find is it provides a lot of consistency. They're still feeling the microdose even on the day off. But it's, the preferred protocol for a lot of the people that I work with. And also, the protocol can change. I invite people to try different protocols, see what works, and listen to your intuition. Let's just say you're on your off day and let's say you're on your on day and you don't actually feel like microdosing, don't microdose that day. It's important to be fluid and take days off throughout the week, but also to listen to your intuition and let yourself guide you. Another thing is that your baseline is supposed to change over the course of a microdosing protocol. So whenever I'm working with someone, the first session is I take an inventory of their baseline. How's your sleep? How's your mood? How are your relationships? What do you actually want to work on as you're microdosing? The microdose responds so well to intention and so well to goals. And we want to help people get results with their protocol. We want them to see that they're able to shift through the use of these medicines. Another thing that I've found is that 99% of the time when people tell me I didn't feel anything at all, if I ask them, how was your ego or that chatter or that critic throughout the day? 99% of the time they report, oh, I didn't notice the ego. I was nice to myself today when I microdosed. Oftentimes, a lot of people experience an inner critic or an ego where they're constantly judging and criticizing themselves. And with microdosing, it might not feel like anything is happening, but to have that voice turned down while they're microdosing and to give that peace and calm and freedom throughout that day, it can really be a game changer in someone's life. And it can take a few days for an individual to find their sweet spot with their dose. Everyone has a different sweet spot. The things that they're taking, the foods that they're eating, the supplements that they're taking, the medications they might be on, the coffee that they're drinking, the caffeine, the sleep that they're having, all these different factors can actually impact the dose. So things like methylene blue or certain substances, supplements, all of those actually reduce the impact of the microdose. Even caffeine can amplify anxiety when people are taking a microdose. They might have to dial back their caffeine. There's so many different factors. So that's why I think that training people to become experts on microdosing is really part of my mission, so that we can increase the outcomes of microdosing experiences and overall shift the culture on microdosing. We want to shift it away from people just saying, oh, it's just a microdose, it doesn't really change anything, to really using it as a tool for transformation. And that just excites me and lights me up. And I'm so passionate about that. And I'm so passionate about teaching people how to be certified microdosing guides. Another thing that I found is that the microdosing effects are not black and white. They're really on a rainbow spectrum. There's a wide range of responses that people have. One of my clients, it was his first microdosing day. He texted me, I don't know if this is for me. I don't think I can do this. And I called him and asked him what's going on. He's like, I'm so overwhelmed. And I asked him, well, that's feeling of overwhelmed, is that new for you? Or is that something you commonly experience? He's like, I experience it every day, and the microdosing is just making it so much louder. And he finally realized, oh, it's an invitation to shift the pattern. It's not that the microdose made him overwhelmed. The microdose amplified the overwhelm that he's constantly carrying so that he could shift it and change it. And sometimes the effects that my clients experience, such as sadness, headaches, fatigue, it doesn't necessarily mean that the microdose made you fatigued. How many of us are tired? I'm tired. A lot of people are tired, and the microdose can show them that they're carrying an underlying fatigue. And sometimes the headache is a mental block, or that they need electrolytes, that they're dehydrated. So it's not just at face value. If someone was to get a headache every single time that they microdose, then we would say, okay, this medicine is causing headaches for you. But this is where coaches come into play to help a client really understand the nuance of their microdosing experience, that the physical states that they're carrying could be an indication of something deeper. What I think is so important is to treat this process as a microdosing ceremony. One of the biggest shifts I teach is, it's not just about taking a pill. It's about developing a skill and treating the process as ceremony. Set an intention every time you take the microdose, welcome in reverence and respect for the medicine. Treat it like a partner that you're working with. And what would you like to receive, evolve, and create in this process and activate? What do you want to become conscious of? There's hundreds of millions of people struggling right now, and current solutions just aren't working. And what I've seen is that many clinicians, practitioners, individuals are interested in this work with microdosing, but don't have the training or framework to guide their patients safely. And that's why we've developed the Microdosing Facilitator Training, and it empowers people and individuals and practitioners and clinicians with the expertise, knowledge, and cutting edge research, and puts them in a network of support so that they can be in a group of individuals that are also doing this sacred work with their clients. What the world truly needs right now are grounded, ethical, heart-led facilitators. And if you feel that call in your body, I'd love to walk with you. It's not just about the microdose. It's about guiding someone through real change. So let's talk about the training and what we train people to provide. So if you are taking the microdosing facilitator training, which were developed in partnership with Double Blind Magazine, you will learn how to provide education, screening, nervous system awareness. You're going to be guiding and facilitating someone through a protocol. You're also going to be tracking results. You're going to know how to give someone a tracking sheet. I get notified every time my client fills out their tracking sheet, and I get really excited to see your report for the day. You're also going to be able to decipher when to contact your client. If you see certain things on the tracking sheet where you might want to help them understand what's happening with their microdose. You'll also have support and understanding of contraindications, both with medications, lifestyle contraindications, supplement contraindications. You'll learn how to process, integrate, track patterns, create lasting transformation for the people that you work with, protocol guidance, noticing change, help people process their emotions and their lives on the microdose, and how to actually create a profitable and sustainable business that actually serves people. Why is microdosing different than high dose work? There's many different ways, but ultimately you're dealing with minimal altered states. You're an integration provider that's helping people integrate microdosing into their lives. When they do high dose experiences, they're integrating that experience. With microdosing, you're sort of always integrating and always shifting. It puts people in a place of neuroplasticity. And what the research shows about neuroplasticity, it's inherently neutral. It can be positively influenced or negatively influenced. So you're going to be teaching your client how to influence their neural pathways and direct them positively. It also, there's lower risk of overwhelmed. It's easy to implement in therapeutic protocols. There's high risk populations that might not be a good fit for larger microdosing experiences. That could be a better fit for microdosing, more consistent outcomes, and has a lower risk of adverse psychological reactions. And microdosing is really great to help people integrate larger dose experiences or be a good entry point for people considering this deeper work. It's sort of like going in the shallow end, before diving into the ocean. People want to get their feet wet before doing a larger psychedelic experience. There's so many different types of populations of people who can benefit with working with the microdosing facilitator. Ultimately, anyone that's new and interested in microdosing, if they were to get started with the support of a guide, it's really going to set them up for success in their microdosing protocol. Also, people that are titrating off medications, elders, executives, global impact leaders, people curious about psychedelics and wanting to transform with microdosing. There's so many different people that can really benefit from having a microdosing guide. So if you're interested in learning more, I'm offering free calls today for anyone that's interested in learning about how they can get involved as a certified microdosing facilitator. Our cohort is now enrolling and it begins May 17th. And we've trained over 100 facilitators worldwide, and we're so excited to welcome you to this training. And this is our faculty. We have an incredible faculty that trains our program. The first month of the training is focused on the foundational education. First 2 months are focused on the foundational education, and the last month is where we actually get to practice these facilitation techniques. And thank you to Jim Fadiman for being on our faculty. And Jim says he's honored to be a part of the most comprehensive and well-designed microdosing training that he's seen. And, I view this training as a bridge from the work that Jim Fadiman has been doing for so many decades, teaching people about microdosing. And now we're, putting it into the context of how to become a guide for others. I'm not going to go through all the different teachers that we have, but we have an incredible faculty of different neuroscientists and clinicians and leaders and experts in the microdosing space. We have, a clinical pharmacist. We have people that are doing underground research. We have a lawyer to help you understand how to navigate the legality of this rapidly growing field, and people that are working with clients through microdosing experiences. Ultimately, with this training, there's 3 main areas that we focus on: how to guide someone through a microdosing protocol, how to actually, I don't know what happened to the slides. Sorry about that.
Gotta go.
How to actually create transformation, not just good experiences for people, and how to turn this training into a real sustainable business and start working with clients. And I just want to share a couple experiences of people that have taken our training. One of our graduates says that since completing the training, she's guided more than 30 microdosing clients, and she's a somatic therapist. This certification integrates seamlessly into my somatic therapy practice. The incredible results my clients are experiencing has truly transformed my practice. And another graduate, after taking the training program, he got hired by a company to create a microdosing course for the company. And this program gave him the knowledge and credibility and confidence to begin his career in the psychedelic field. This training is not just for working one-on-one with people, but that's really at the centerpiece. It also, you can use it to teach workshops, speak at conferences, do research, create programs or courses, work with couples, facilitate groups, lead microdosing retreats. This is our certificate. You get to receive this beautiful certificate in microdosing facilitation. We were the first microdosing facilitator training in North America. So it's really exciting to be at the forefront of this work. And we put you in practice groups in the training. And what the feedback that I've had from a lot of our amazing graduates is that they're still in touch with their practice group. Some of them are creating businesses together. A lot of them say that was the best part of the training, was to get to be in a network with so many other people doing this work. And so you can enroll today. We'll put the link in the chat, and I would love to speak with any of you that are interested in signing up for the program. And I can't wait to know you and work with you and collaborate with you on this path. And here's a link to Jim Fadiman's book. Oh, our website is lumerianow.com. And I highly recommend reading Microdosing for Health, Healing, and Enhanced Performance. And there's a link. You can find the book at microdosingbook.com and scan the QR code as well. And we're going to be giving away 3 signed copies of Dr. Fadiman's new book on this webinar for anyone that you can enter to win by booking a call with me. And yeah, I'm excited to meet you. Thank you so much for being here and receiving the work that I'm doing. And thank you to Double Blind Magazine for partnering with us on the training. And you can also find me on Instagram, connect with, and I would love to meet all of you. So please reach out, and I look forward to being on this sacred path with you all. So we're going to just take a couple minutes, and I want to bring on Maxwell.
It's up.
I've had dozens of people sign up for a call. I'm just so grateful for everyone that has signed up for a call. Thank you so much, and so excited to meet all of you.
I've been watching the chat, all the sub conversations, people recommending odd drugs and how to get them and get a discount. I'm just amazed. One person was talking about dosing and mentioning for, I think, her children that she would need to give them a much larger dose because they're taller and heavier. That's not true. That's actually contraindicated. Measure their brain in the first place and understand that one microdose, 1/1,000,000th of a gram of LSD has 1.53 quadrillion molecules. There's more than enough for even your heavy, heavy person who has the same brain as a much lighter person. So one of the reasons that we're here is to prevent that kind of well-meant but totally incorrect and maybe not safe information. And it was fascinating to kind of watch all this other chat happening below stairs, so to speak. Because normally when you're doing a podcast like this, you're just glancing at the chat and hoping somebody else is taking care of it. So, and someone is asking about MPD, the worst form of menstrual link disorder. The answer is microdosing is extremely helpful when very little else is. The suicide rate for that condition is something terrifying, like 30%. Take a look in the book. The people who've spoken at length and I've followed for several years will make you feel as if there is finally hope. So now, Danielle, questions that we can take. Now that I've taken a few.
Let's see. But Amanda asks, I'm moving to Oregon from Texas to pursue my career in psychedelics. I'm going to get my facilitator license there. How does this relate to that? Are they separate thing, or are they, how would you compare? So that's a great question. I have looked into having the training be part of the licensure in these other states, and they create a lot of barriers for entry for training programs like mine to be a part of these other states and part of the statewide programs. And so we're just a separate thing right now. We're not a part of these statewide programs. And yeah, we like to have our accessibility beyond just certain statewide initiatives. And so we can serve people all around the country. We even have people in different countries as well. So ours is more of like a, nationwide program that's eligible for people to join all around the nation and not connected to any statewide program.
There was a chat about eating disorders. Take a look at the book, fascinating anorexia study. Basically, a lot of eating disorders are not physical. Therefore, they're much more amenable to working with things like psychedelics and microdosing.
There's a question about microdosing to get off of anti-anxiety meds, Rose. I love that question. That is, it really depends on the medication. What we always recommend for people is to work with your prescribing physician or psychiatrist, whoever's prescribing the medication. They should be able to give you a very conservative titration protocol. Microdosing facilitator can support you with microdosing, but it's always important to have someone that can guide you through that titration process. What I've found with microdosing specifically, what's really exciting, what I've found is anytime that you're doing a titration off of medications, this is not medical advice. I'm not giving advice to titrate off medications in any way. What I have seen with individuals is that the day that they actually titrate, they don't experience the withdrawals. It's actually the following days after they've made that titration process. So bringing in the microdosing a couple days after the actual titration has gone down, and using the microdose as a supportive tool to support the titration process, but also understanding the risks there, because not making sure that you're not on many different medications as you're in
This meeting is being recorded.
As you're titrating carefully and safely off of an anti-anxiety medication.
There was a question of why do some people feel it with a very light amount, some people don't feel it with a very large amount. Why is that? Human beings are different and different ways of metabolizing, that's the biochemical, lots of different ways of how you handle an altered state. We know that if you do research on alcoholism, totally different results if you work with serious alcoholics who've learned how to control the state versus people who get into research programs, usually called college sophomores, who can't handle their alcohol at all. And so you have totally different results. The answer is, if human beings were all the same, we would be not having this program. And if people got off of medications in the same way, we would not be having this program. This is the reason you need individual support or learn how to give individual support is the very obvious one. These are not pharmaceuticals. They are substances which work to heal your system. That's a little more complicated. The problem with pharmaceuticals, they're not evil, but most of them simply suppress a symptom, which is why you take them every day, because the suppression doesn't last. Microdosing is about changing the way your body behaves. And so most people with microdosing do not increase their dose, they decrease their dose. That's a very great difference. Your goal is to help someone not need either you or the microdose. And then there's a whole nother level that you can work on if they're interested. But most people who are suffering and in pain, that's huge, and many people, that's enough.
Exactly. Not about creating dependency on the individual or the microdose itself. I love that. What kind of schedule do you recommend for microdosing? Just the days on and offs. I personally recommend Nova protocol, which is 2 days on, 1 day off, but I also recommend experimenting with different protocols so that you can figure out the best protocol for you. And the protocol might change based on the activities that you're doing and the work that you're doing. So be flexible and fluid with the protocol. We don't want you to feel stuck in a protocol. And if you're not, there's no wrong way to do the protocol, I would say. Instead of, the only wrong way is to it every single day without any breaks and building up tolerance and saying it doesn't work. I want you to try different microdosing protocols to figure out what works best for you and your nervous system. And everyone's always different. So for example, some of my clients, they'll take 2 of the microdoses first thing in the morning, where other times people take 1 at 8 a.m., 1 at 10 a.m. to sort of spread out the dose. You know, if you take 2 at the same time, that's going to be a stronger microdose, and it depends on the substance that you're working with. But if you take a small microdose and spread it out throughout the day, that just extends the length of the microdose. But being aware of how long the microdosing can last and what works for your nervous system, everyone is different.
Question of how do I work with the medications I'm on and microdosing? Isn't there some interactive? And the answer is one of the major reasons you use professional help is that's very tricky. In the book, we mention 100 or so medications and supplements where they don't interfere with microdosing, but there's more people that say, I want to get off of substances either that no longer work or never worked, but my physician doesn't know anything else. Microdosing and medications is a dance. It's not a formula. And when Danielle talks about, a word I always use is tapering, because that makes it clear you're using less and less. And physicians, by the way, hate the word withdrawal. I'd like to withdraw from this medication, which makes me sick and I hate it. No, I can't use withdrawal. That's about bad drugs. And I'm not giving you bad drugs. I'm just giving you things that act like bad drugs. So tapering, always when you're getting off a medication, you go to the person who prescribes it and you say, I'd like to taper off. I'd like to use less of it. If you feel you can share with them that you're microdosing, better. If you can't, that's why you have other people to help. There was a question about the cleanup period, but since I didn't know what a cleanup period was, I will pretend I didn't read that question. But if you're asking about what happens as you're microdosing, pretty much symptoms decline. They may decline in little jumps or they may decline in a slide, but that's what you're looking for. That's what you're doing successfully. And when they stop declining, then you need again to go back to someone that knows a lot more than you do. That's why you work with people. How about having to pee more with LSD? I don't know anyone that wants to pee more, but I'm assuming that you're actually saying that when you take I'm guessing a high dose of a psychedelic, you pee more. That's usually for most people an entertaining moment in a very long, day-long process. If you're finding that you're urinating more in a way, dangerous way for you or uncomfortable and you're microdosing, that's why you ask someone that knows more than you do. It's a charming question. Can you drive a car while microdosing? Remember what I talked about, the athletes, they do better. Your reflexes are faster, your visual acuity is more, it is very much not, do not use this, whatever it is, while operating heavy machinery, even light machinery counts. You're improving your functioning. It's really a lot of your questions are, if microdosing were a pharmaceutical, would it have some crappy effect like the pharmaceuticals that I'm thinking of? And the answer is it's not a pharmaceutical. A lot of the questions just are not relevant. It's kind of like, does it turn my hair color? And so far, no.
Thank you so much for everyone that's booked a call. It seems that the calendar has stopped working. I don't know why. Maybe the AI just turned off the calendar because so many people are booking. So that's exciting. We broke the robot. Please put your email and your phone number, or put your email. Yeah.
Okay. Danielle is just going to ask me for advice should she have more availability. I'm going to secretly send her a note that says, of course, even though you're going to be on the phone for the next week or two, that's why we're doing this. We need people who care, who are interested, who are serious. And if Danielle's going to take the time to talk with you, then let's book her up as much as we can. And just when you back tomorrow, you'll keep this open tomorrow from at some few hours for exactly that. Well, I was thinking of saying, but I thought it would be kind of smarty ass cute to say, if Danielle's training is full, because you are listening today, you will not only be put on the first level on the waiting list, but the waiting list will be first only to you before it will be open to new people when she opens the new training. But I didn't want to say that, but now I will, because it looks like we may be into that best of all problems.
Well, they're just booking up calls with me. We do have space in the training program, but we do limit the amount of people that come into the training program. So we invite anyone that's interested in joining the training to sign up before spaces fill up for the program. I did see I'd love to know the average cadence of facilitators that are meeting with their clients. Danielle mentioned tracking logs can be a good way to gauge this. I'd love to hear about how often on average. So great question, Brooke. What I typically do is anyone that's interested in microdosing, we do an hour-long consult. In that first hour, I take an inventory of their baseline, how their sleep is, how their mood, their relationships, their focus, productivity, just aspects of their reality as well as their relationships and their work. And then I understand what their goals are for the microdosing protocol. Microdosing works great in partnership with their goals, where they want to go, what they want to achieve. I want to help people get the results that they want through the microdosing protocol. And then the second half of the consultation, I take people through a very high level education on the supplements. The more that they understand how to work with the microdosing protocol, some of the common pitfalls, what to look out for, what to be mindful of, how to actually integrate the experience, the maximum benefit that they can receive out of their protocol. And then I text them the first few days of their protocol to help them find their sweet spot. I love when my clients text me, I get really excited. And they give them their tracking sheet for them to fill out every day after they've been working with their supplement. Even if it's 1 minute a day, just tracking their process can really help them see changes. After they've been microdosing, I'll meet with them for a half hour after the first week to process how it went, reflect, integrate the microdosing experience, and then we meet again at the end of the month to review how the month of their protocol went, make any changes for their protocol, and then continue from there. And that's what we teach about in our training program, that specific framework and how to track your clients for growth and success.
Okay, sounds pretty good. All right. I'm really grateful. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm really grateful that we got to do this because this is really the way it should be beginning to expand. That people who are skilled facilitator trainers have an opportunity to let people know what their training is, what's available, how they can be of help. And indirectly, and a lot of your chat questions were things that you would want someone to ask. We don't yet have a kind of volunteers answering questions yet, but it's one of the projects that probably a number of the facilitators who know each other may want to set up at some point, because there's going to be simply too many people who want to be helped for the number of facilitators we have.
One of the questions is the facilitator training for therapists only or for those who have other experience with plant medicine but are not therapists? Great question, Natalie. We welcome all different types of people, not just clinicians. We welcome people that are wellness practitioners, people that are just individuals passionate about psychedelics and microdosing. As long as you have a deep relationship and interest in these with microdosing or psychedelics, and also are interested in helping guide others and from a place of ethical facilitation, then we'd love to welcome you to the training program.
So remember, if you have a degree and a license, that doesn't mean you know anything more about microdosing than someone who has none of your training. So what we found, even in the 1960s, is the best facilitators were people who were the best facilitators, and it had nothing to do with their background.
And there was another question about, how to, I forget where the question was, there's so many things in the chat, but how to navigate the legality. It's a great question because we are talking about substances that are illegal in most states. It's not illegal to provide someone guidance, harm reduction, safety, and transformation. We can't legally teach people where to get the substances. We can teach people how to work with them safely and guide them through that process. We specifically have a class in our training program that trains about how to navigate the legality from our legal expert, who is such an expert on how to navigate legality, how to run your business. There's a lot of challenges running a psychedelic business as well and things to be mindful of, so we're careful with that. Additionally, we have a class specifically for clinicians, how to navigate the conversations of talking to your clients about microdosing as a clinician.
Was that your question? Okay, yeah, we can both handle a little more time, and I keep watching all these wonderful questions whip by in the um, chat, and people answer a lot of them, which is also wonderful. And most of the answers are really good. A lot of it's very sophisticated people here. So helping each other is what we need to do, because there's no, fortunately, it's not only the best way, but we have no alternative. But so let's all. One, a question is a single sentence, has a few clauses maybe, but it's a single sentence, and it never begins with, I got to tell you about my trip first. So it has to be a question like the ones you put in the chat, and they're great. Let's have a few of them. That's great, Max. One is, oh,
Okay. Yeah, there have been several questions. Thank you, Dr. Fadiman, for doing this. You may have seen my note. My mother is Dr. Betty Eisner, and I would still love to talk to you if you could. But the question is about SSRIs and interfering with microdosing. And then Danielle mentioned, actually coming off meds, and what's the experience with that? How many people have actually been successful with that? What downsides do they do it along with the person that's prescribing the meds? That's a lot of questions.
is. SSRIs are not a very good medication. People, when they come off them using microdosing, pretty much universally, they say, I feel better. Then they say, I feel happy. And then I say, I feel like I'm myself again. That's been pretty much universal. If people are having other reactions, if they're coming off the medication too quickly, like it says in that thing, they will have all kinds of symptoms. Microdosing can make those symptoms softer, but that's the medication which has become so integral to your brain that when you take it away, your brain treats it as if it's a problem rather than a relief. That's the general, and that's true of all medications. It's just that SSRIs and things for ADHD are among the multi-billion-dollar medications that we find less necessary and less valuable because now we have an alternative.
I have found that if individuals are taking SSRIs and microdosing, that sometimes the SSRI can blunt the microdosing experience where they don't really feel the microdose and they might have to increase the microdose. We don't have any research on long-term studies of people combining medications with microdosing, so we just don't know what the impacts are with that. I have found that if people are wanting to titrate off of their medication potentially and use microdosing, could be a very supportive tool to help them do that. But oftentimes when people are combining the microdose with an SSRI, they either don't feel the microdose as much, or sometimes there can be other types of effects that can happen where they can get strange dreams, or they start having weird sensations when combining the two, but overall it seems like there's a low risk profile for combining them. It just tends to have a blunting experience to the microdose.
Remember, the purpose of SSRIs is to blunt your experience. So it's not surprising that when you add another substance that improves your experience, it has to deal with the fact that you're taking a depressant. They should not be called antidepressants. That's a marketing term. They should be called emotional suppressants. That's a much more accurate description of what SSRIs are for. And if you have a lot of very negative feelings, you want them suppressed. If you have a lot of positive feelings that you haven't been able to get hold of because you're suppressing all your feelings, that's why a lot of those 10 million people are using it, because they would like to not be on medications that blunt their experience.
And in terms of how many, yeah. I, I've seen 100% success rate so far with the people that I've worked with that are coming off of medications using microdosing as a supportive tool. I think she had asked about how many people are actually having success with this. And that would be a very interesting study for us to specifically do to understand how many people out there that I'm not aware of are having success titrating off of antidepressants with microdosing.
Right? Probably it's not much, 100%. Is in the group that seems to be beneficial to almost everyone. It's with exercise and with sleep and relationships and vitamins and microdosing. I'm fascinated by Danielle basically saying anybody who wants to work, at least with her and the people she's trained with SSRIs, so far, it's really good. Okay? It doesn't mean it works for everybody. Nothing works for everybody. But some things work for most people, and that's what we start with. So a different kind of question, please.
Yes, thank you all for sharing your time today. A lot of time. Really appreciate it. My question is two. Will the course be discussing, in terms of protocol, the different types of psilocybin that could be offered, and do the different varieties have different impacts when you're working with someone?
Let me answer that quickly. Different species have different amounts of psilocybin and the other alkaloids in the mushroom. So some are what we would simply call stronger. They have more of that particular mushroom. So that's just the way it is. There isn't like a different group of mushrooms, except for one wonderful one where all you see is little teeny people, which we won't discuss today. It's too much fun. But all the mushrooms that most of us have access to, simply it's how much psilocybin is there.
Yes. I did want to answer the question. Yes, we do train on that. And I think that's honestly what makes our program unique. We have the founders of Hype Labs who developed the first psilocybin potency testing lab out of Oakland, California, and they have done sequencing on thousands of different types of strains. So in the program, they teach about these different strains, different varieties, and which strains tend to be more suitable for macrodosing versus microdosing, and a lot of the nuance when navigating different strains of mushrooms. So thank you so much, Lisa. It's a great question. I really appreciate you for bringing that here.
Yeah, thank you. Hi to everybody. Thank you, Dr. Fetterman, and thank you, Danielle, for hosting this. This is a really great experience. I'm super excited for everything. Just something quick comment I just wanted to share that my experience in the past with natural compounds like this, one thing that I see and feel is my brain tingling and my brain getting warm, and I know that that's, to me, that's what this is a signal of. Is it's getting your mind and your body working to its fullest potential. What I think, how I view it, and your brain, the tingling in my brain is.
Sorry, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. I have a lot of firsthand experience with.
You have a question.
Yes, I do, and I'm speaking. Can you hear me? Yeah, my apologies. I have firsthand experience with.
Wait a moment. I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off. I said before, the one thing that.
No, I'm telling you, I have to just.
By saying, I want
understood.
to talk about my experience.
My question is, the medical benefits. Do you want us to channel that information? Can we channel that information to you? You said earlier in the presentation that you would like to know of the medical improvements that have been discovered.
Microdosebook.com. Microdosebook.com. Send us the information. That's how I got the Tourette's information. Sorry to cut someone off, but we're truly trying to get questions. And I love information. Next week.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Hello from Germany. I was thinking about persons with trauma and suffering from anxiety. When a person is in a state where it couldn't handle a high dose because of the psyche would not be capable of coping with that, then microdosing was my idea, could be a good idea. And is that something to be aware of, or could there also come memories of that?
I got the question. Understood. People with high anxiety, upset, is it inappropriate to give them a high dose? Question is, would microdosing be beneficial? Danielle?
Absolutely. And I think it's important to inform people about the benefits and the risks. Because it depends on someone's nervous system and the support that they have around them. Sometimes the microdose can amplify anxiety, but across the board, we tend to notice that it actually helps people with anxiety and helps them. It can help reduce anxiety, reduce stress, and help people become aware of what's leading them to have anxiety, right? Like anxiety is normally a symptom of something deeper, whether it's attachment wounding, things that have happened in childhood, a response that's happened, a holding pattern that's happened over time. Microdosing can help people become aware of the root and also start to shift their neural pathways so that they can respond differently to stress and anxiety that might come up in their lives.
Thank you very much for that question.
Yes, thank you, Maxwell. Yes, thank you for gracefully and patiently cutting off the non-question. My question is, how long, very patiently, how long do you spend, or what's the ratio of your time that you spent in the knowing of, how much to give someone and when, and how much to, prescribe, and then how much to not know and to experiment or to just feel and use intuition? I find myself struggling with this, like, oh, I know what's right for this person versus like, oh, maybe we should take a step back and do some rethinking or experimenting.
Let me give you the general answer, and then you'll get a much better one. For most people, there's a range. The rule of thumb is start below the bottom of a person's assumed range, and which is called start low. The next is called go slow. Raise it only slowly, and after they have some awareness of what they're experiencing, and take time off. Whatever you're giving people, there has to be time off. That's the starting point. And the ranges of what's correct for most people are in the book. And there are people who do better on 1/10 or 1/100th of the lowest dose mentioned. And there's another group of people who don't begin to have experiences until they're taking 3 or 4 times the top of that normal range. So it is always individual. And you start low enough so that if it's too much, it's not a big deal because you're still in the very low range. The other thing to keep in mind is there's a sweet spot, an area for each person where it works. Below, nothing. Above, it starts to be slightly like the beginning of a psychedelic. If you are a little bit high when you're microdosing, you are not microdosing. You have just passed through the part that works. Slightly more is not better.
Exactly. Well, you said that all perfectly. And always start low, do it on a day where they don't have a lot going on. I've been surprised by how sensitive some clients are, even if they're on medications. If one client felt like a full-blown journey, even on a tiny, very small microdose. So just start as low as possible, dose it in a way where they can slowly escalate the dose. Additionally, note that there are different sweet spots based on the activities that they're doing. Environment matters. Their beliefs around the microdose matters, intention matters, the people that they're with, the activities that they're doing. Have them check in with themselves the first day that they're microdosing and see if this is something they can integrate into their work or everyday lives. They might have to even dial back the dose even more in certain professional settings, and really be slow and careful with it, and have them experiment with different dose ranges so that they can know where their sweet spot is. I always provide everyone with a graph of how to find their sweet spot so that they can keep coming back to the graph to understand how to shift their dose range to figure out what their sweet spots might be.
Why don't I close first? Because I just want to thank Daniel, who asked the last question, who sounded like he works with people, and he was asking how do you work on the dosing question, and then you had an answer from someone who's simply had probably more experience than he has about how you work with the dosing question, and that's the model that we're seeing today. That's what's coming up from someone who has a good, intuitive, sensitive clinical training and so forth, but hasn't done a lot of work with a lot of individuals on microdosing. And so you start low, go slow, and if you can, if you're able to find someone who is a professional and knows a lot more, then obviously that's a good thing to do. So it's been wonderful to be with so many of you. There was a question about, is the chat being saved? And there was an answer about how to save your chat. And I hope from Max's point of view that the chat was saved, because you are incredible treasure trove of the kinds of questions that people who are serious and have had experience ask. And that's what we're about. So thank you all for coming. And some of you will see some of us at some other time.
Thank you, Jim. I just, you're the shoulders that we all stand on. Thank you so much for pioneering the field of modern microdosing, developing the first protocol, bringing structure and professionalism, and really putting yourself out there for so many years, educating the world about microdosing. You are the reason why we are here at this moment in time. And I just want to honor you and thank you so much for who you are, for your soul, and for collaborating with me on this sacred path. Thank you to Double Blind for your partnership in all the work that we're doing with microdosing, both with the training and with the summit, and for just all the work that you do in the psychedelic field. And to each of you for being here with us, I honor you. Thank you for having the courage to do work on yourselves and experiment with and transform and grow with these powerful substances. And I'm excited to meet you all and welcome you to become a microdosing facilitator if the path calls to you. And wishing you all such a beautiful rest of your day, and know that you can reach out to me anytime at lumerianow.com. And my email is connect@lumerianow.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Million, not 10,000. It's all zeros.
Thank you.
Hmm.